And Andy's here. Hi, Andy. How are you? Hope you're fine. And we'll see who else is on here. And, oh, Julie's here. Hi, Julie. Just give it another few seconds here. According to the counter, we've got 8. But not everybody talks. Okay. Oh, Andy says, doing fine, taking a break from painting furniture. Sounds like fun. Not. Bonnie's here. Hi, Bonnie. So, Bonnie, you all ready for the election tomorrow? Oh, Linaire's here. Yes, we have not seen you in quite a while. And, okay, so, yep, today's topic's going to be about, because it's the most important topic right now on all Canadians' minds, so sorry for those of you who aren't Canadian, but I'm going to share our thoughts and feelings about what asshole shall we vote into power, because basically those are our choices. Bonnie says, I'm ready, know who I'm not voting for, but confused to who I am going to vote for. Well, maybe we can help you with that, Bonnie, because we know exactly who we're going to be voting for. But we'll come to that in a few minutes. So let's just start with general housekeeping and what's been going on this week. Just got off the phone with my mother. It always puts a little spark of life into my day after I've talked to my mother. Not? Yeah. Long story short, she's fine and still comes up with more problems for me to solve all the time. And most of them are not problems at all. They're just problems in my mother's mind. So, you know, there you go. Now you know why I drink. Bonnie says, did she vote? No, not yet. And I don't know if she's going to or not. She has the opportunity to vote tomorrow because they have a private polling station in her nursing home. It's just for the residents. And I contacted them last week to see if my mother needed any ID. I didn't think she did because they have all that stuff on file. But they said, nope, there was no problem. They would have their poll open from 1:30 to 4 o'clock, and they would, those that wanted to vote, they would make sure they would take them down and help them out, and everything would be looked after. I suspect my mother won't vote. She didn't vote in the last election. And I don't think she'll vote in this one either. But the opportunity is there for her. Bonnie says, definitely, we always did too, have a poll at the nursing home. Yeah. So I don't know, it's up to her. I just got off the phone from her, like I said, and I reminded her that tomorrow is election day, and that if she wanted to vote, there was no problem. So, anyways, we'll see. So, what else? Oh, we were trying on our Halloween costumes this afternoon. No, we are not showing them to you today. First of all, I did take a little video, and apparently I didn't push the buttons in the right order, so I have shots of me going up and down stairs, but the actual ones that I wanted, I didn't get. So we'll have to redo those. But we will do those before the Halloween event we're going to on Friday. We'll probably do it on the Friday, and then I'll probably include it as part of my vlog, not this week coming, but the week after. So anyways, but they are a bit of a scream. They're a little bit over the top. Just to let you know, we are waitresses this year in the 1950s style, sort of a thing. Actually, I think we look like cone heads with those wigs that we got, or those foam wigs we got. But anyways, it'll be good for a laugh, I'm sure. Decorated the doors on the front of our house in preparation for Halloween. I'd made, as you've seen on my vlogs, I've shown them there, I made a couple of banners for the doors. Then I had trouble figuring out how to get them hooked up, but I did overcome that, and they look pretty nice, I think, on the front doors. So, yeah, so we're getting ready. Okay, anything else this week? We didn't have any sewing classes this week. I'm starting a sewing class tomorrow, and then I'll have 2 in a row, Monday and Tuesday, for the next few weeks after this week coming up.
Actually, no. I think we're going to be wearing. I haven't checked them out, but they have shoes that have lights in the bottom.
Yeah, if you, I don't know how many of you would remember from last year the costume we showed it, but we had these shoes that Walter got at Walmart, and they're kids' running shoes. Actually, we have very small feet. We take a lady's size 9, but these are a youth's, a girl's youth's. What were their size 6?
Yeah, which is actually an 8.5 in ladies. So
Like big feet. Anyways, they fit and they light up and change colors and everything. Have you charged those up?
no, I have to do that yet. Well, I'll do that later today.
Hopefully they still work.
Well, we had one that was shortened out.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right. Well, we may have 1.5 shoes. So, Bonnie says, oh no, Andy says, are you going to wear the saddle shoes? No, we don't have the saddle shoes. We're just talking about the other thing. Bonnie says, do you have issues with people taking your outside decor? No, but we don't really have a lot of stuff outside on the lawn. We have
Actually,
nothing.
we've never really had that problem.
No, we
Yeah.
well, yeah. Well, the stuff that I have right now are just on the doors, and our doors are like they have glass. They're actually screen doors, storm doors. That, but we never put the screens in. We just have the glass, but it's full length, and our doors are double doors. So I just hang the banners on the main doors, and they're kind of protected by the storm doors. So I don't know. But no, we've never really had any problem.
Even any kind of outside decorations that I've had, never had really too much problem.
No, even
I
at
mean, we did
Christmas.
have a couple of issues that when we first moved in here, but I have a feeling it was kids making fun about two guys living in the subdivision.
What we did?
Yeah, I remember I went out on when I had the red truck and I went out. And,
Oh, way back.
Sometimes there was one time there was a beer bottle on the top.
Oh yeah, yeah. That they may have thought we were lesbians.
Oh, who knows?
That's when you were going through your lesbian phase with the big truck.
But that was way before. That was way back in '95.
Yeah.
Before any other rights.
Before
came
it
out.
became popular.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think they were just yahoos down the street.
Yeah, probably. Well, actually, this subdivision's always been fairly quiet. We don't get a lot of kids on Halloween, anyways. We used to when we first moved into the subdivision, but those kids all grew up and moved away.
Yeah, we got about 120 or 140 the first couple of years we lived here on Halloween, and then last couple of years we got less than 20.
Yeah, that's nobody. It's kind of boring.
Yeah, what happens is we're in a little bit larger lots, so there's lots of space between the houses.
Yeah.
And
Little
and-
suckers are too lazy to go from door to
and
door.
then we've since been surrounded now by townhomes, and it's a shorter travel distance to get from townhome to townhome.
Yeah, like, okay, I guess that's maybe they're playing the odds there. More candy, more bang for your buck in less time. I don't know. But anyway, so that's coming up. Can't think of anything else that's been happening in the past week. We went to Bowmanville Apple Festival yesterday. Woo! Now, we had never been to that before. Bowmanville's a town, actually the same town that my mother's nursing home is in and where my sister lives, not far from us. And they seem to have a festival every weekend. Well, this weekend was the Apple Festival, but Walter said they should have called it the Maple Syrup Festival because every stand, there was more maple syrup to be had than apples. But they had all kinds of, people selling their jewelry and their scarves and their wood planks with burnt in inspirational sayings like home sweet home, just do it, whatever. I think those are the stupidest things that were ever invented, those plaques. But anyways, and there was tons of food, all kinds of things, poutine and ice cream and baked goods.
And huge lineups to get stuff.
Yeah, and I bought $14 tarts. Yes, half a dozen tarts. I love butter tarts. These ones aren't, well, they had a butter tart, but they were a mixture. They're very gourmet. They should be at $14 for 6 of these
Are
stupid
they any
tarts.
good?
Well, I had a second one today, and no, not.
Sounds to me like it was a bit of a ripoff.
I think it was a major ripoff, but
It was that toasted walnut or whatever.
yeah. I'm a fine connoisseur of butter tarts, and I try butter tarts from here and everywhere and whatnot, and yeah, most of the times I'm disappointed.
Or I keep saying I should make some more for you.
Yeah, I know you keep saying that, but you never do it. But you did make the pie. Well, it's a pie he made last. When did you make that pie?
About a year ago.
What, that pie's been in the freezer for
Yeah.
a year? Wow, peach pie, vintage, from a year ago. Well, it was frozen, uncooked frozen, so he cooked
frozen solid.
it. Well, it still tastes okay. I mean, I haven't dropped dead from it.
Well, it should still be okay.
Well, did you have any effects from the peach you had last night?
No.
No, well, neither did I, so I guess it's good. So, why wouldn't it be? Yeah, so that was kind of interesting, but boy, what a zoo. Everybody and their dog were there, and these people with baby strollers.
Baby strollers
Oh.
and huge dogs. There were people walking around with German shepherds.
Like, hi, what are you trying to do? Impress me? Oh, you got a big dog. Oh, look, you have a baby. Isn't that nice? How about we put your baby with the vicious little doggy, and let's see who wins. Okay? Oh God, it was wall to wall people. You could hardly move down the street. They shut off the main street and had all these booths and vendors and everything out there, and it took us forever to find a parking spot. People were just trying to park wherever they could find a spot, and there weren't many to be found. So, but we did manage to do that. So that was first time we'd ever been to that. What's on tap tonight, Bonnie says? Strollers are huge these days. Yes. What's the tap? We're drinking Prosecco. Was it Prosecco?
Yeah, it's Moneto Prosecco. We've had this before.
Moneto? Moneto. Oh. Cheap version of a sparkling wine, commonly known as champagne, but not champagne because it didn't come from Champagne region of France.
Bowl.
Yeah. Well, it's the French. You know, if it's not French, it's poo-poo. So, what else? Trying to think what else has been going on this week.
Well, we had dinner at your sister's. And then
Well, yeah, that
was
last.
last
Oh,
week.
yeah, that's right. Because we were on earlier last week because we went for dinner for Thanksgiving dinner at my sister's place, and that was fine. It was an early evening though because my sister wasn't feeling very well. Rumor had it she might have been a little hungover. She wasn't claiming that to be true, but she wasn't really saying it wasn't either. So, and her husband just sat there and was kind of giggling to himself through it all. So I have a feeling she had a little bit too
her
much.
and her son were sitting up
Yeah,
late.
yes. My nephew came home for the weekend, and so I guess they sat up late, and I think they were drinking some beer. So I don't know. Andy says, I don't know about the rest of you, but I think the guys should let us know what they'll be drinking far enough in advance so we can drink along. We don't know until 5 minutes before we turn it on. In fact, Walter went out an hour ago to get that bottle. We didn't have any in the house, any champagne-like stuff. And then you never know what he might throw in a blender. It's whatever might be laying around. So, Bonnie says, I'm drinking a white wine along with you. Okay, good, Bonnie. I hate to drink alone. So, well, I guess we'll move to what are we watching? Nothing. Well, you finished Glitch,
Yeah, I finished late.
and I'm just sort of trying to catch up. See, I started watching it, and I stopped after the second episode, season 3. If you don't know what Glitch is, it's on Netflix. It's in its third season. Basically, these people just miraculously come back from the dead, and they're trying to figure out why. And then there's all kinds of little intrigue around. It's not a bad show.
It's Australian.
It's Australian, actually. Yes, that's right. And so, as I said, it's in its third season, but he's finished the season now. I was waiting so he could catch up, and then we watched them together. But no.
Well, you started watching it on your own.
Yeah, but I just watched the first
ended
2
up watching
episodes.
2, and then I ended up getting bored one night and ended up watching a couple more, and
And
one
so
thing
on,
led to another.
and so on, and so on. What else have we been watching? We haven't gone to the show since 2 weeks ago.
No, there hasn't been anything on
No.
lately that have really
We've been
interested me.
checking out YouTube videos about Calgary and Edmonton because we're planning to go out there in June. We've been before, but it was 25 years ago when the last time we were there. So I guess things change, a little bit. But Walter's been booking hotels and things, and it's not been an easy thing. You would think, like, we're not going until next June, and already things, especially in Banff and Jasper, which are huge tourist attraction areas, are already pretty much solidly booked in terms of hotels for next June. So if you're ever planning a trip to Canada or out to the west coast
I guess
of
it's much
Canada,
more popular than when we went last time.
yeah. Bonnie says I go to Calgary twice a year. Do you have any trouble getting accommodation, Bonnie, when you go?
Well, Calgary hasn't been a problem getting accommodation.
Oh, I thought it was the problem
No,
too.
it's just deciding where to stay. That's all.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it's wide open. I can get a hotel room this weekend if I want to. There.
Oh, okay. So
But
it's just Banff and
Banff and
Jasper.
Jasper, that's
Oh,
the
all
hard
right.
ones.
Oh, okay. Oh, she stays with her daughter. Okay. Well, that's convenient. So anyways, that's what Walter's been working on this week, making the arrangements for that well in advance.
So we've got all the hotels booked. We just haven't got the flight booked yet.
No, we haven't got the flight booked yet, but there's tons of flights to
Yeah.
Calgary. We're going to fly into Calgary. We'll have a
Actually, we had thought of flying to Edmonton, getting a car driving around to Calgary, and then flying out of Calgary. But then I found out the drop-off fees for the car,
Yeah.
if you go from one to the other, is humongous. It's double the price of a car rental for that. So we save about
Yeah.
$600 by driving, going round trip to Calgary.
Oops, that didn't work. Yeah, so Bonnie says, but there are so many hotels in Banff, can't imagine it being booked already
It's
wall to wall.
pretty much booked, except for unless you want to stay at the Banff Springs Hotel at a cost of $900 a night for your basic room.
Yeah, no. So, Andy says going to Banff is on my bucket list.
So where we are staying is I found hotels at it's a place about 24 kilometers down the road called Canmore. They always make fun of Canmore.
Why did they make fun
I
of
don't
Canmore?
know. If you watch that, this hour is 22 minutes. They're always making jokes
Oh,
about
yeah?
Canmore. But anyway, it's in Canmore, which is also, it's only 24 kilometers down the road. So if we want to go Banff, we can just hoof it over to Banff. And I found some reasonable priced hotels there. Well, not really reasonable. They're not. During that time, if you go right now, the hotel rooms are like $80 or $150, and you go in June or July, and it suddenly goes from to $200 to $450 a night.
Oh, geez. Well, Bonnie says Canmore is beautiful too, smaller version of Banff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So I think that's what we're doing. So
so I'm sure it'll be fine. But what else? Nothing else really on that. So, anyways, the big news for us in Canada is our election day. I have a feeling that a lot of people around the world, mainly because of the influence of the Americans. I mean, when the Americans have an election, you know about it 2 years in advance because right now it's all that's on CNN and everything else is about the Americans and, you know, trying to get things ramped up for the election. That doesn't happen for over a year yet, again. And of course, the whole thing with trying to impeach Trump and all that stuff. But there are other countries in the world, you know, that have elections as well. One of those is ours. And the reason probably a lot of people outside of Canada don't hear much about our elections or pay any attention to them is because we're Canada.
and plus our elections
So-
don't take that long. Like I mean,
No.
we don't prepare that far in advance. Like everybody knew an election was coming up because it was about time for it to occur. So then the party that's in power sets the date or whatever, and we have it like two months down the road type of thing.
Yeah, well, they have a stipulation and they cannot start to campaign until there's so many days before the actual election day that can be used for campaigning. It's nothing like the Americans. They're campaigning now. But their system is totally different from our system, the way that they do
Bonnie
it.
says 6 weeks. Yeah,
Sorry, 6 weeks. Yeah.
yeah, it's about right.
Yeah. And she says ours are more civil, only last 6 year
6
weeks or so. Oh, or last
Yeah.
6 weeks or so. Oh, yeah. That's true. So you're not inundated for years with an
I mean,
election.
it's a kind of a grueling 6 weeks. 1 year.
Yeah, and that's what today's topic is about it. And I called it Canadian politics or who's the lesser asshole. And that's what we're talking about in this country, who we're going to put into power. And Bonnie, you said you're undecided. So, and I think there's a lot of people that may be undecided because one of the problems is I think we all know that they're all a-holes. And so, you listen to who's going to do the least amount of damage to you. Catherine's here. Hi, Catherine. I wish I didn't have to see or hear about the Orange Menace ever again. I'm jealous of the Canadian election cycle. Yeah. Yeah, because once it's on, it's on. And of course, the media has been running rampant with the two principal leaders. I mean, really, we have, 6 parties running?
We have
our
two major ones are liberal and conservative, which is sort of like liberal is our
Democrats.
Democrats, and
To put it in American terms.
in American terms, and conservative are your
Republicans.
Okay.
Then we have the NDP, New Democratic Party, and they have a very socialistic platform. Now, Americans hate us talking about socialism because in an American's mind, socialism is communism. It is not. We are a socialistic country. We have a welfare system. We have all kinds of things like that are paid for through our taxes to the government and that, much more so than what the Americans have. So they consider that communism. It is not communism. We actually do have a communist party, but you don't hear much about them anymore.
No.
They usually run like one
Actually, I
candidate.
haven't heard anything about them.
I haven't heard anything about them this election.
So
round,
we have an NDP party, which is New Democratic Party, and they tend to have a lot more social things. Like they want more daycare, they want more medical stuff, they want
better climate control.
pharmacare, better climate control. What else? They'll daycare for everyone, and
They're supported by the unions usually.
Yeah. Anyway, and then we have the Green Party, which are supposed to be the tree huggers.
Yeah.
And all about the environment and all the other stuff. But this time around, the Green Party seems to become a lot more socialistic again. For everybody, they're almost sounding more like they're the NDP with a naturalist twist.
Yeah, Catherine says they want a better and happier society. Wow, meaning the NDP. Yeah, the problem is with the NDP is they've never been in power at the federal level. So all they know and all they're good at is being the opposition. On top of it all, they have very unrealistic ideas as to where the money's going to come from to support our medical system, our universal health care kind of thing, our pharmacare, if we had pharmacare, and all this kind of stuff. And they think they can just tax the 1% richies in the country more and make that money. Well, the richies have lawyers, really good lawyers. And anybody who tries to overtax them, and it's the same in any country in the world, no matter what, the rich just get richer, the poor get poorer. And it's no different here in Canada. And those lawyers will find loopholes in the tax laws, the whole bit, or take the government to court to protect the interests of the wealthier classes. And most Canadians, I think, the ones that have half a brain anyways, realize that. And I think that's why the NDP seldom ever rise above it being anything more than just the official opposition. They have good policies. It's just they don't have any money to back it.
Last time the NDP got into power in Ontario was then the banks all gave them a poor credit rating.
But the banks are all owned by the wealthy and by the conservatives, because the conservatives represent the wealthy in our society, basically.
Yeah. So what ends up happening is conservative government tends to shut down any of the socialistic things that we have, and give tax breaks to the rich.
Yeah.
So
I mean, having said that, other countries in the world, that's a lot worse than in ours. But nevertheless, this is the country we live in, and so these are the things that we have to put up with, or that we put up with.
Well, actually, I don't understand why people seem to think that voting NDP is communist. You're not communist. You're actually voting for a party that has more wants to bring in more social type stuff.
Bonnie says, I don't remember them ever being in opposition. Good point, Bonnie. I might be thinking more of
Ontario.
provincial, Ontario, because they have been the official. Well, right now they're pretty much the. Well, no, Conservatives, I guess, are the opposition, aren't they? No,
No,
Conservatives are
they're-
in. Liberals, no, it's
The NDP is the official opposition in
That's right.
Ontario,
Yeah,
yeah.
because the Liberals got so wiped out in the last election in Ontario, they barely have I don't even know if they have party status anymore
No, they don't.
with that. So, but at the federal level, you might be right. They may never have actually represented the official opposition, but many times they are in an opposition position because the other party that's the official opposition needs their support to get anything over the party that is actually ruling, especially when it comes to a majority government. But
Oh my God, remember Ford? We have a Ford in right now.
yeah, we remember Ford. He's in right now. He's the Premier of Ontario. Yeah.
Yeah, and the first thing they came in and barreled in all these cuts to the health. They said, "Oh, we're going to get rid of hallway medicine, blah 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 blah, and all this sort of stuff." First thing to do is major cuts in the healthcare
Yeah.
system.
Yep. And then they're trying to fight the education system and that kind of stuff. Now, they did lose a major battle with the support workers in the education system. They had to back down on everything that they were going to take away from them. And I think that's a good thing that the union won, because now they're coming up against the teachers, the public school teachers, the secondary school and elementary school. And boy, if they thought,
They've decided to increase class sizes to something like 28, and people
yeah, but in reality, it's not 28. In reality, it's actually 35 to 40 in
or
a classroom.
45.
Yeah, and there's actually no physical room for those kids. And I'm talking the high school level right
Yeah,
now.
the new schools they've built, the classrooms have been smaller, so there's no way you can squeeze that many kids in a classroom.
Yeah. So they're in for a real fight. And the OSSTF, that's the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation, they are a very strong union. And they won't just lay down and roll over and play dead. In fact, no, there's going to be a big fight coming. And Ford, who's our Premier of Ontario, he see the legislature, our House of Government in Ontario for the provincial government, has not been in session since the summer.
Spring, yeah.
Tail end of the spring, beginning of the summer. And he purposely did not recall back the legislature until after this federal election, because he's causing a lot of problems for the federal Conservatives. He is a Conservative too. His party is Conservative and they're in control of Ontario. But because of all the bad press he's gotten, because of all the stupid things he's tried to do and whatnot, the federal leader, Andrew Scheer of the Conservatives, kind of keeping his distance to Doug Ford. And I think they had a little conversation, so the rumors through the press go, where Doug Ford sort of agreed to stay incognito until after the election. And this is why, right now, at least for us in Ontario, this federal election is really causing a lot of anxiety. And that's what we want to talk a little bit about today, how that affects you as a voter. Because it's not just a question of who's going to be in power and what they're going to do. It's the anxiety through this whole election process that until election day, you don't know who's going to be in. And so, for example, if the Conservatives get in with a majority government, you can kiss a lot of things that we've had under a Liberal government goodbye. Because, as I said, the Conservatives support big business. Andrew Scheer actually has dual citizenship. He's a Canadian and an American, which has caused him some grief when that came out and everything. And apparently, and I think I said this a week before or so, he is rescinding his American status, he says. But there's a process, you know, for doing that.
And it takes several months
to do it and everything.
Which I never really quite understood. If he's the leader of a party, why he didn't rescind it way back before he supposedly put the papers in August, and why he didn't do that before. So to me, I figured there's some other underlying reason why he hasn't done that.
Yeah, Bonnie says, my son-in-law is very concerned about his job as he's in the oil industry. Yeah, okay, so the only threat to the oil industry that I can see coming out of the parties would be if the NDP or the Green Party got into power.
Yeah.
Especially the Green Party, because the Green Party would just like to wipe out any kind of pipeline discussion totally and instantly put us all in electric cars.
And Green Party does that as well.
That's what I meant, the Green Party.
Yeah.
That's what I said, the Green Party. And the NDP sort of support that as well, but not quite as loudly as the Green Party. Yeah, okay, I get it. The Green Party, yeah, the environment is a very major concern. The Conservatives, on the other hand, if they got into power, the oil line that they're building now, or supposed to be building or something, that's going to go through, because that's a big business
Bonnie,
interest.
the Albertans have always been very conservative.
Oh yeah, always have been. But a lot of that is because it's the oil industry out there. That's their major industry, and that's controlled by huge, big business interests. You know, the gas and oil companies. Kind of
The
thing.
Reform Party and Harper and everybody else came from out west. The western provinces, especially Alberta, have always been a heavy conservative voting group.
Yeah. So that's what you have. But the problem right now in Ontario is if whichever party is going to win this election, it's going to come from the votes that happen in Ontario. Ontario has a very strong conservative support, but they also have a very strong liberal support. And right now, because of Doug Ford, the premier, and what he's done to the province so far since he's been in power, that they're afraid, at least the Conservative Party is afraid, that may swing voters to the liberal side.
Bonnie says I disagree.
Which part do you disagree with, Bonnie?
About me saying about conservative support?
Sure. We're ahead of you, Bonnie, here, so we have to back up.
Well, I know there's a few liberals in there.
I think Quebec controls the outcome. No, actually, Quebec does not control the outcome in this election. Actually, in a lot of the past federal elections, Quebec has had a major influence on it. But this election, the Liberals, thanks to Trudeau being French-Canadian himself, or Francophone anyways, he's fairly well liked in Quebec. But the other thing is that Quebec has the Bloc. Now, this is another party that people who are not from Canada probably have never heard of or don't understand what it is. The Bloc is a party, a French party in Quebec. They basically are based on the philosophy that Quebec is different and unique and should be treated totally different from the rest of Canada, to the point of the most extreme members of the Bloc support the idea of separatism, which usually rears its ugly head every 15 years or so. But the rest of Canada cannot vote for the Bloc. They only run in Quebec. So they do have, the last few years they've been weakened, but this election they seem to be coming on fairly strong. So that could play into, how many seats the Conservatives could have and how many seats the Liberals could have in there, depending on how Quebecers vote if they go for the Bloc, more or less. Yeah, and that's what Bonnie says. It can swing the votes from the Liberal to the Bloc. Exactly. Bonnie says no. She says no about Ontario controlling it. Not controlling it, but they're.
I think the way it is that the truth of the matter is, if you get all of Canada, the largest two provinces with the largest two populations are Ontario and Quebec, and so they have the most seats.
Yeah.
Out of all of the rest of places in Canada. So that's where you get the whole idea that Ontario or Quebec might have the huge influence on the on the election.
Hi, Cindy.
I'm not saying the rest of Canada doesn't have any say,
No, they influence it too. But right now the major leaders have been concentrating a lot of their campaigns on Ontario.
And if you look at the general even in the last election, which was a Liberal where the Liberals won, if you look at the ridings in Toronto, for instance, almost all of the downtown area of Toronto has been Liberal in the past. All the highly populous areas of Toronto, and the outside lying areas of Ontario tend to be where all the farmers are, all vote Conservative. So that they're all Conservative. And Northern Ontario, where everybody's employed by the forest industry,
Yeah.
is almost always been NDP.
Yeah. Now, Bonnie, what's it like out in the East Coast? What's the who do you think has, out of all the parties, do you think has the most influence? Is it the Conservatives or the Liberals or what? Because, you know, this is something too. People who don't live in Canada probably don't understand about Canada. We're a huge country, and each province is somewhat unique in the way they look at things. Like, for example, I can hear it in Bonnie's voice on here, her prejudice against Ontarians.
So Bonnie says that they sort of flip one way or the other.
Yeah. And she could probably hear in my voice the Ontario bias towards the East Coast. What would that bias be? East Coast? Who cares? I'm kind of joking there. I mean, the East Coast is a very important part of Canada. However, there are many people in Ontario who really believe that once you hit the border between Ontario and Quebec, Eastern Canada doesn't exist. Out in the West Coast, they don't like Ontarians because the province of Ontario has the most major big businesses in it. And this is why it's kind of a very conservative kind of stronghold because of what I said earlier about it. And we really hold province of Ontario is the financial district of Canada, basically. The western provinces are
They all hate Ontario.
They all hate Ontario. And the only things they hate worse than Ontarians are Quebecois, the Quebecers.
Because anything you get further out, Ontario is still somewhat bilingual in French in it, but as soon as you get past Ontario into Manitoba, they don't speak any French yet.
Yeah. And then you get to Vancouver, and they're just totally different. They're sort of the California of Canada, I always think, because it's kind of like, hey, dude, surf's up. Oh, wow, man, you want some grass?
But they have a huge Asian population out there. And so I think their official language is Mandarin and
Mandarin and English. Yeah. So then you have the East Coast, and the East Coast is kind of...
Well, you have the French because you have the Acadian there.
Well, yeah. You have that out in that end of the world, yeah. But I mean, you have the East Coasters we think of as the fishermen, basically. You know, that kind of thing. And the country's really quite diverse in the way it goes. But what was it? Bonnie said here, yes, time to get together instead of being one against another. Exactly. Ontario does have that reputation. I'm sick of it, to tell you the truth. It's an old type of thinking. Yeah, it is. But, you know, in some ways it's not untrue. Ontario, like we joke, when we travel to other parts of Canada, we go, okay, we've just left civilization. This is the way Canada really is. It's weird. Once you get out of our area, the Golden Horseshoe, it's like, okay, if you know what Letterkenny is, that's kind of the way people see Canada. I don't know. Letterkenny, you may not know any. Bonnie might know what Letterkenny is. I don't know, but
fishermen are such a minority in the Atlantic region.
Yeah, but you know, and that's probably very true. But guess what we know about the East Coast in Ontario? Okay, and here's what: it's the media. Right now, there are advertisements on TV and on YouTube. Come to beautiful New Brunswick. Come to gorgeous Nova Scotia. Come to Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, all of that kind of stuff. And guess what they show? Ocean, cliffs, sail ships, all the time. So you would think if you had never been there.
Yeah, we haven't been there in a long time.
No, we haven't been there many years. Actually, we're talking about going to Newfoundland next fall, maybe. I don't know. We got a lot of things on the plan here. We just have to have the money for it. And I'd love to go out to Newfoundland and that. And I'd like to go back to the East Coast too. Because New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island. It is beautiful out there. And the people are nice and everything, you know. In Ontario, the people in Ontario, we're more city dweller types, at least in our area. So, you know, the stereotype of a city dweller. And in Toronto the bad, like right
Well,
now.
Toronto, people are more in tune to themselves. They don't like they're not as, I don't know, I think it might have gotten a little better. When I used to work downtown 40 years ago, people stopped holding doors open for you. But
Yeah.
I think it might be a little better now, but I'm not sure.
I don't know. Everybody who comes from another country and goes to Toronto talk about how clean it is and how friendly the
I don't know, I
Canadians are.
never
That.
find it's that clean.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because we live too close to it. Bonnie says, it's a beautiful area. We live a simple life, not so hectic, and we say hello. I go to Ontario often, so not a foreign place to me, but not the same as in our area. No, it's not. They're very different. And it's not a question of which one's better. They're not. They both have their positives, they both have their negatives in the whole bit. It's just whatever you're used to. We're used to the city life.
Yeah. And Bonnie's the only one commenting here. Nobody knows anything about Canadian politics or wants to know anything about it.
No, probably not. But we look at ourselves as an educational channel as well. And for all those people who know everything there is to know about the States because we can't get it out of our television sets, it's time you learn something about the real Canada as
Bonnie
well.
says she's originally from Quebec.
Oh, are you?
Or are you from a big city in Quebec or rural Quebec?
Les Rural. Whatever. Pracey's here. Hi, Pracey. You never got the notification? Not my fault. That's a YouTube thing. And actually, I've heard this on other people's YouTubes lately again, and it seems like YouTube has done something again with their algorithms or whatever. And it's
The Canadian election. Something you'd love to listen
Canadian election, because tomorrow we go to the polls, Pracey. So, anyways, I had a few things down here about why it gives us anxiety. And this doesn't just pertain to Canadian politics. Everybody goes through this election time, I'm sure. First of all, it's the age-old, they promise you the earth, moon, and sky when they're trying to get your vote. Once they get into power, forget all of that. This is a given, isn't it? We all know that. But the problem is, we all are the kind of people, I think that most people still have, unless you're completely negative about everything, I think everybody still has a spark of hope in them, thinking that with a new government, there'll be new things happen and they'll be for the better, we hope. That's our emotional side. Our mental side's going, no, it's going to be the same old crap. So that's why I go back to say, so who do we put in power? It's a question of who's the lesser asshole. And right now in this election, it's pretty hard to tell. Now, I'll be right up front. We're liberals. We vote for Justin. We love Justin.
I have voted NDP. Yeah.
I did too, and that was a mistake at the time.
Well, no, I still sometimes vote NDP, depending on.
Be canceling out my vote.
Depending on
Excuse me?
who I think will actually win. Sometimes it's my negative vote. It's like, who do I think has the best possibility of winning?
No.
Area?
It's not a negative vote. It's you're voting strategically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that never works. They've been talking about that a lot lately too. So Bonnie says, who do I vote for, Stephen? You promised to let me know by the end of this show. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to tell you right up front who to vote for, Bonnie. Okay?
Well, I don't like Scheer either.
Okay, let's look at the leaders. Okay, now this is the thing. Do we vote for the party or do we vote for the leader? Now, in our country, the way a person becomes the leader, the prime minister, is that his party has to have the most number of seats in the House of Commons. Okay? And so he's the leader of the party, or she's the leader of the party, and they become prime minister. Simple as that. So we're not voting, per se, for like Trudeau or Scheer or any of the other leaders. In fact, when we vote, if I vote Liberal, and I will be voting Liberal, in my area, that's really not a direct vote for Trudeau. That's a direct vote for whoever the representative of the Liberal Party is in my riding. But as I said, whatever party gets the most seats, they lead the party, and the leader of their party is prime minister. So in the case of the Liberals, that would be Trudeau. Now, I'll come back to Trudeau. Let's talk about the other a-holes, okay? Let's talk about the biggest a-hole, or as I like to call to him, our version of Trump. And that's Andrew Scheer, the leader of the Conservative Party. This guy never finished a post-secondary education. He has never had a real job, except he's always been in politics. As soon as he finished his education, he walked right into politics. I do believe at one point in time he was actually Speaker of the House for a little bit too, which is something I did not know about, and I don't know why I know that now. I think I heard that on something. I could be wrong about that. Bonnie, you can correct me. But anyways, he has no idea. I think he was privately schooled when he was.
No, I'm not sure about
or
that.
wasn't? No. He's an idiot. He has. If you listen to, we watched the debates. We've listened to his campaign, and when he's asked a direct question, he will never give a direct answer. Okay, so he's a politician. Do they ever give direct answers? I know, but he will not. And then when they press him, he will say the same old thing. He's got catchphrases. What's their slogan right now? Liberals is choose
Something
forward.
about getting ahead.
Oh, putting more money into your pocket.
Put more money into your pocket, and it's something about a vote for being conservatives is a vote for getting ahead.
Yeah. No. He's trying to tell people that, oh yeah, he's going to reduce this and that and the other thing. And so we'll have more money in our pocket. It won't all go into taxes. The thing is, he's still got to pay for services. So if he's giving us back money, where's the money going to come from? He's going to cut services. That's what they do. And as far as he's concerned, and the conservatives, they want to take anything that the government may control right now and privatize it, sell it. And they've done this. Every conservative government, whether they've been at the provincial or the federal level, have sold things off.
Like they sold off our toll highway to a private interest. And that's why we have the most expensive toll highway in Ontario.
Yeah. And the other thing about Scheer is this. He talks on two sides of his face. Again, a politician. Which ones don't? But a few years ago, he did not support pro-choice. He
still doesn't.
And he still doesn't.
In private, he says he still doesn't support it, but he won't.
However, in Canada,
the issue.
In Canada, abortion is legal. Okay? And it is a woman's choice to have whatever she wants. Yes, it goes against the religious right. Who cares about the religious right? The religious right, though, does have a strong hold in our country to a certain degree, especially out west. They're very strong out west, and that's where Scheer's riding is out west. Although he was born and lived in Ottawa, Canada, as a kid. So, whatever.
Yeah, so the theory here is okay, he doesn't support pro-choice, right, in his own private thing. He says he won't reopen up the issue or whatever. But will he support women in the future?
Or other services that are related to the whole abortion and pro-choice kind of issue? Will he support new initiatives that are part of that? No, he won't. So you see two sides of his face. No, I won't reopen the issue, but I'm not going to support anything else.
I'm not going to give you anything else, no.
And it's the same with the LGBTQ community as well, and same-sex marriage. He was against same-sex marriage and the whole bit. He says he won't reopen that. Over my dead body, he'll reopen that. But anything that supports, like right now, we have a whole thing for the transgendered people. They need support. They need certain laws need to be changed so that they are included, just like gays and lesbians and everybody else and that. But he may not reopen the same-sex issue, but he's not necessarily saying he's going to support transgender people. So there's a problem. The other thing, too, is back to women issues. The number of women that are in the Conservative Party are not many. And in fact, the Conservative Party does everything they possibly can to negate having women in their party or putting women that are already members of their party into positions of power. They are not good at that at all. Not only that...
In fact, even if you look at the Ford government in Ontario, the Conservative government, they have very few people of color in their party. And they have one or two. And then they have very few women. It's almost all men.
And the other thing they don't support is they are basically racist as well. Now, we are a country that you well know is very multicultural. And they're talking about tightening up our immigration laws and things like that. Now, I have to say, to a certain extent. There's a piece of me that kind of agrees a little bit with that. But what they want to do is basically shut down our doors. And that's not how Canada works, okay? That's never been part of Canada's philosophy. We don't have an isolationist mentality. We believe that if people need safe sanctuary, that we have a large country with a small population, you can come here. Yeah, it's caused us some grief. There's no two ways about it in our country, but nevertheless, he would cause more grief by their policies against immigration. Let's see, people are saying things here.
Prezi says the Bible says so.
When life begins, when they draw their first breath, like God breathing life into Adam. You want to know something? To me, until I see the kid wiggling away its hands and its arms and crying, to me it's nothing. Okay? Sorry, but it's not. But more so, it doesn't matter what I think about that. What matters is what a woman thinks. It is not my decision. It's not my body you're screwing around with one way or the other. There are many reasons why abortion should be done. Let's say, and you've heard these arguments because they've been around for years. One, what about a woman who gets raped and ends up pregnant from that? Is that not grounds for abortion? What if the child, with all the tests they can do today, is going to be so severely malformed that the quality of life for that child will be almost non-existent? You know, what about a poor girl who gets herself, well, I'm not going to say gets herself, a poor girl who ends up pregnant before, she's really started her own life out there and that kind of thing. Yeah, the best way to avoid all those situations is prevention, okay? But these things do happen. Plus, it's not for a bunch of old white men in power to dictate to a woman what she can and cannot have done to her body either. That's Middle Ages thinking right there. Priest says animals abort their feces in times of stress and famine. Well, a female cat will run and hide to give birth to her litter away from the male, because what does the male do? And this happens a lot in the animal kingdom. The male will kill the offspring. So usually the female will go into hiding to have her litter or whatever she's having in there too.
Yeah, Bonnie's heard. Yeah, you're right. You're right. And it's, if someone decides someone gets pregnant and she wants to keep the baby, well, that's up to her.
That's her choice. That's her choice too. I mean, I'm not saying, and I don't think anybody is saying about the abortion laws, that it's indiscriminate. I mean, the ones who are anti-abortion are saying that people just willy-nilly, well, that's just, see, they take it and they extend it to the idea that people are having free sex everywhere without...
And they're using an abortion as a
form of birth control.
I don't believe that's true.
I don't think any woman is using that as a form of birth control. I mean, that's pretty ludicrous to think that.
Because I would imagine having an abortion, I mean, I'm coming from a male perspective, but I would imagine it's a big decision for a woman to make. So,
Priestess says they want women to stay at home, and Catherine agrees with Bonnie. That is a USA philosophy, not a Canadian philosophy. True. I think about the bodies thing, controlling their bodies. Yeah, well, that's I think for the Americans, that's their extreme right, their Christian fundamentalism there. But we've got Christian fundamentalism up here too. We have it. It's just not, we don't hear as much about it as you hear about it from the States.
But I mean, there's a lot of, recently in a couple of gay parades in the area, we've had religious groups come out and protest. Yeah.
And, Bonnie says regarding immigration about the U.S. philosophy and Canadian. Yeah. Now, Andy says, help me understand why conservatives want to do away with abortion, but they don't want to provide the services for kids. Again, they will provide services for kids if it's done by a private corporation who's going to make money from it, because to them, that's big business right there. But, yeah, you're right.
And it's not as a social thing where it's paid from taxes. It's paid from private pockets.
Yeah. Now, Catherine says, the religious right in the States is so concerned with the unborn because it controls women. They could truly care less about these children who have already been born. They put kids in cages here. Yeah, heard about that one. And Bonnie says, as you see, I'm very passionate about this. Sick of someone else telling me what to do because of their religious values. Exactly. Exactly. Now, one thing I have to say about our Canadian election compared to the American election is that you don't hear as much about the religious agenda. It's there. It's definitely there in the conservative mentality in the Western provinces because it's much stronger out there, the fundamentalist point of view. But it doesn't stand up, like you don't hear it so much during all the rhetoric during a campaign, an election campaign. In fact, if you do, and I think the politicians stay away from it, if you do, it makes everybody's ears prick up and, you know, puts the hair on the back of their neck up too, I think, as well. So I think they stay away from that, as they should. What is it? Separating state from religion, kind of a thing. And Trudeau's father, Justin Trudeau's father, said the state has no place in the bedrooms of its citizens. So, or something, I paraphrase. But it was like that. It was a famous thing that he said, too. So, Andy says, say it, Catherine. Yeah. So, okay. So, back to the Conservatives and why I wouldn't vote for them. Okay? They don't support women's rights on any issue. They don't support LGBTQ rights on any issue. They want to privatize everything, which is going to end up costing everybody a lot more money and make and dwindle away at the middle class and make the poorer poorer and the rich richer. They lie, and they lie by omission. Scheer has said nothing about his platform.
One thing else we have in Canada, which they have not brought up in the election, and the Conservative government doesn't support, is we do have euthanasia.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That is legal. Euthanasia.
It has to be it has to be by the patient, and at least 2 doctors have to.
Yeah, it's just not, you can't go in and say, kill me, kind of a thing. But we do have it. And I think any civilized society should have something like that. And there are many, I think in, too bad Mel wasn't here. I think in Sweden and
I know in
places
Holland
like that,
it.
they have it. And in Finland and that, I think they've got it, had it for years or whatever. But that's a touchy issue in this country as well. So they've pretty much stayed away from the discussion of that. The other thing about Andrew Scheer is he's slimy. Just look at him. Okay, yeah, don't judge a book by its cover. But in this case, the cover is very important since they're out in the media all the time trying to look the part of whatever as a leader. He's just slimy looking. I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. And as I said, the Conservatives have not really stated very clearly what their platform is, and they've done a lot of non-talk and a lot of doublespeak where they just keep throwing their slogans back into the face of the voters. Well, that doesn't give me confidence in their ability to lead a country. Okay? If I was an undecided voter, which I'm not, I would think, well, really, what do these people stand for? I'm not getting the full picture here. And that's, to couple that with Doug Ford, the premier of our province, a Conservative, and that's why Scheer didn't want Doug Ford to enter into any of this fray right now. Because a lot of people who voted for Doug Ford voted for him because he made a whole lot of stupid promises that any intelligent person would know he could never keep in 1,000 years and wouldn't keep. But these people were sucked right in by his, I hate to use the word with him, but charisma. To me, he's just a big fat pig. You know, put lipstick on it.
I mean, there's an issue that Kathleen Wynne, or the Liberal Party leader in Ontario, was also a lesbian. And there were a lot of not saying anti-gay, but there's a lot of groups of people that were, she brought in, sex education.
Oh,
and there was a whole groups of religious-based people that did not want their kids to have that.
I.e. Muslims. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying anything derogatory against Muslims. None at all. Okay? Nothing like that at all. But what I mean is because of their their religious background. Many of them do not feel comfortable with having sex education in the school. However, they are still a minority in our
So
school
one of the
system.
big platform things that Doug Ford has is that he was going to get rid of the sex education
Yeah.
in the schools because nobody wanted it, blah blah blah, and all this other stuff. Well, since he's been in power, they spent $1 million or more, or several $1 million, refiguring out the sex education for Ontario, and it turns out it's almost exactly the same as the one he got
Yeah.
rid of.
Yeah.
So there was a waste of money with that. Then there's
But then these same people who voted him in because they thought he was going to go through with this like sex education thing in the way they want to be done, then they were bitching because he turned around and there was supposed to be an increase in the minimum wage of $1. He rescinded that. That was from the government before him, said it was going to come into effect January 1st of this year.
yeah, and he basically came in and eliminated that.
And then those people were all complaining about it, but they were the same ones that put him into power. Well, what did you think was going to happen? You were voting for him because he was going to make one change that you liked, and that was it? No. It's a whole package deal here. Okay? You have to look beyond just the one issue. So, basically, the Conservatives, Bonnie, a vote for the Conservatives is a vote for putting you back into poverty unless you are part of the 1% that have millions and millions. And Bonnie, if you are one of those, I would really like to come down and visit you. I hear the East Coast is lovely.
She says, tired of religion controlling our state, not only Muslims, but the Roman Catholic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But you want to know something? We don't have it as bad as the Americans do for that kind of thing because they're very strong. And there's other countries in the world
Well, it's
too.
not just the Roman Catholic, it's also
The fundamentalist Christians.
Fundamentalist Christians.
And that and the whole bit. And that's a discussion on itself, okay? So, no Conservatives. Let's go to the NDP, okay? The New Democrats. Now, I have to say, their leader, Singh, he's, I'm not sure exactly, he's Eastern background. He's a Canadian, but, you know, like, he's...
Well, he'd be a Sikh background.
I guess he's Sikh, yeah, you know. And he does wear his turban for everything. He's got quite a few turbans, actually. He actually uses the colors to represent different things, which is kind of cool. I think he's a fairly well-spoken man. And he, you know, he's actually pretty sharp. When you saw him in the debates, it was almost like the Singh show because they kept referring things back to him. But the problem with Singh is his stuff is pie in the sky, as I said before with the NDP. They're going to do this. They're going to put more money in Canadians' pockets. They're going to support more services for Canadians. They're going to do this, and the other thing. They're going to protect the environment, blah, blah, blah. What they don't tell you is where the money's going to come from. Well, actually, they do tell you. They say, as though it's a fait accompli, that they are just going to tax higher the 1%, the ones that make millions, and the corporations. Yeah, to date, that hasn't happened with any government that's been in power. Okay?
Well, not only that, as soon as they get into power, the big corporations take them aside and say, this is what's going to happen and this is what's not going to happen, right? So, although, as much as I hate the big corporations, I don't necessarily think, we do want businesses to be here, so.
The other thing, too, is about the NDP party is they have never been, except in Ontario, well, no, they in some provincial ones, not just Ontario, West, they have at times
been in power.
Led the power. But there has never been an NDP government at the federal level. So they have no experience. Their experience lies with bitching at the government that's in power, okay? And they do it fairly effectively. However, I have a feeling if they were to get into power, they would be just all thumbs because they wouldn't really know where to begin with it. And no, I think a vote for the NDP is a wasted vote. Now, I have done, like Walter said, he's voted for them before. I have voted for them before at provincial level. That was a mistake, but I did what I thought was a strategic vote at the time that I did it. Turned out that didn't work in my favor because I didn't really want them to get into power when I voted for them. But I figured they'd make a really good opposition, and if it was a minority government, that would be really good at that time. And I'm talking many years ago when I did this. And then they got in power. And then They did everything that my father warned me that the vote for the NDP was a vote for communism, and he always used to say. And it almost made me start to believe what my father said was true. Because we had Bob Ray days, which were days where we didn't get paid, like in the public sector, teachers, so they could save money on things. They just arbitrarily put that in. We couldn't do anything about it, and they did a few other things. Now, ironically, the leader of that party, Bob Ray at the time, is now a liberal. Okay, so there's the other thing about politicians. They belong to a party, but if things aren't going well for them in that party, they will switch. So there you go. You voted somebody in for their party, and 6 months down the road or 2 years down the road, they switch to a different party completely.
And we've had that happen here,
Yeah, on more than one occasion.
where they say they cross the floor.
Mm-hmm.
They've suddenly decided, well, I'm not going to be liberal anymore. I'm going to be something else, and they.
And that isn't in the best interests of the public they're supposed to be serving. That's in the best interests of them and the big pension they'll get after they leave the legislature, the House of Commons. So, you know, and I said this before a long time ago and other things. Politicians, we all know, are only in it for themselves. Anybody who says they're in it for the people, no.
A Trumper, I know, lost his house and blamed Hillary.
Of course. What else is being said here? I saw Trump voter and she was upset with something that's enacted directly affected her. Whatever Trump did was okay. Okay. Trumper, I know, lost his house and blamed Hillary. God, I despise that man. He is so narcissistic. Is that Trump you mean, Bonnie? Tracy, are you sure? Seems to me he always blames Obama for everything that's wrong with the world. Yeah. Okay, so basically a vote for the NDP, although Singh, I think, would make a good try at being the leader of our country. The other thing that we have to realize, too, about it is there was a guy came up to him. I saw it on the news. An older gentleman, and of course he was out on a meet and greet or whatever, campaigning away, and this older guy came up and they got him on the audio saying to him, you know, you might get a few more votes if you got rid of that turban. I'll have to say for Singh, though, he didn't bat an eye. He turned around and he says, well, sir, he says, Canada has a wide diversity of peoples in it, and I am just one of those in the group. Like, basically, he didn't get upset with the guy, but he let him have it back. I mean, it was lost. His comment was lost on this guy because this guy was some kind of hick hillbilly who just crawled out from underneath a burning cross. But
we do have a number of older people here that have very severe prejudices.
And so they won't vote for,
somebody wearing a turban.
Someone wearing a turban. You know, in some ways, I think that in Canada, we might be, maybe this is a little piece of conservatism in me, but I sometimes think that we allow different religious groups, different ethnic groups to maybe too much maintain their original culture. They don't necessarily assimilate.
That Singh responded to that man in this way.
Yeah, I think it was, and that's what I say. It shows that Singh is actually a very intelligent man, I think. He is a good speaker. One thing that drove me nuts during the federal debates is he would try to bring, I know what he was doing. He was trying to make himself look personable to people by saying when they came up with an issue, he would bring it down to what was called a personalized level. He goes, I met a single mother in Northern Ontario who was suffering with just this problem that the Liberal government or Conservatives don't want to, and this kind of thing. He brings it down. He knows all these people he's met. He never mentions their names. He just, somebody, which makes me think that he's making these little stories up. They're like little anecdotes kind of a thing there that he wants to tell with it all. Not necessarily that he's being dishonest about it, just that, do you need to go there? It sounds kind of trite to me.
Yeah, actually, Bonnie, you made an interesting thing. You said today the Conservative Party today is actually the Reform Party. What do you think? I think they're more conservative than conservatives used to be.
Yeah.
Which is more towards the way the Reform Party was.
Well, they did. They amalgamated with the Reform Party back a few years ago. And the Reform Party was very extremely conservative, very right at the time. They don't exist anymore.
And I think the Conservative Party now is more... I think if it was just the old Conservative Party, it wasn't as severe, as I think it's closer to, well, it's closer to a combination of the Reform
Yeah.
actually, and it's probably leaning more towards the Reform.
But look
Party.
at who their leaders have been. Stephen Harper was our prime minister for how many years? 10
Yeah,
or whatever. Okay, he came from the West. He came from a Reform background.
yeah, it was the Reform base.
And Andrew Scheer, although he doesn't come from the West, he has his writing is in the West and whatnot, and he shares the belief system of, or at least he pertains that he does, of the Westerners.
Because now it's called a conservative party. A lot of the people that were true conservatives before are now thinking it's just the conservative party.
Yeah, well,
but in actual fact, it's more leaning towards the Reform
Yeah,
party.
I think so. Well, Bonnie says yes, but people are thinking it's the old party. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. With that. So basically, voting for the NDP, I think, is a wasted vote. Even if you try to do it strategically, there's not enough, there wouldn't be enough votes.
Okay, supposedly, let's say you're in an area and you think that the NDP is going to get more votes than the Liberal Party is going to get a vote. You might vote for the NDP thinking they'll at least get in and be part of the opposition.
Yeah.
You know?
But, so then there's the Green Party. Okay, all right, the Green Party. Actually,
I'm not sure what the Green Party's doing
anymore
these days.
because they've changed. When Elizabeth May became the leader of the Green Party, and by the way, she is the only female running for female leader of a party running, for that in all the parties. I thought she was a bit of a nut job, a tree hugger. Actually, she's a lawyer background, and she has come across in this election as being much more. Things that come out of her mouth are not so tree huggy, vegetarian like kind of tofu toting, soybean eating kind of comments. However, she's been aligning herself with the New Democratic Party, and that was very apparent in the federal debate, the leaders' debate, because everything Singh came out of Singh's mouth, she would turn around and say, "I agree with you on that." I'm thinking, are you guys team tagging here or what? Are you going to amalgamate the Greens with the NDP, or what's happening?
Yeah, actually, May is actually very intelligent.
Yes.
But I don't think I'd vote for the Green Party.
Well, the problem with the Green Party is, I agree with a lot of the things you're saying about the whole environment and the stuff like that. But the problem is they do not have a concrete plan how to make the transition to go more green. Canada does need to go more green. There's no two ways about it. But she does not have a concrete plan for it. She's like the NDP. We'll just tax the corporations more and the 1% rich and the whole bit. That's not going to work. They're going to find ways to get out of that. So it's really not a sensible plan.
Okay, why I won't vote for Green? Green is too green for me. Yeah, they're too. Yes, we do.
They're too extreme.
We need environmental things, but actually, for instance, the pipelines. I believe that the pipelines need to exist in this day and age. Hopefully, our dependence on oil will stop at some point in time, but I think the most efficient way of moving oil or gas in this country is through pipelines.
You see, the biggest fight they've got going with that out west, from what I understand from the news, is the Indigenous people. They're cutting across their land with this and blah, 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 and the Indigenous people are going on and on about the fact it's our land. But, okay, fine, then why don't you take an interest in the pipeline or something like that? That's the other problem we have in this country. All of the parties have to tackle the Indigenous problem, okay? Yeah, we have a problem with Indigenous people. Yeah, we took their land. Well, not us. I wasn't there when that happened, and I've always said, you want the land back? Great, give us the beads back. Can't find the beads? Sorry. No return, no deposit without the receipt. Okay?
No, I realize that Quebec's not into pipelines, and neither is the natives. Yeah, the pipeline takes up space and stuff like that. However, what's the alternative? Truck the oil. Do what they're doing now is they're trucking the oil
Yeah.
from one spot to the other, and that's environmentally friendly? I don't really think that is.
No. And then they talk about, well, what if it busts? And then all that wildlife and things like that. Yeah, it's a possibility it could, I suppose, but they do build these things with the idea like they don't really want the pipeline to bust because that
That's
costs
a
them
big
money.
loss.
That's a big loss on so many fronts, too. But she doesn't have an alternative to that. What's her alternative? She keeps saying, go green, go green. Well, I'm sorry, but I can't afford a Tesla or a hybrid, okay, right now.
And technically, that's not necessarily going green too, because lithium batteries are a big environmental issue. If you have everybody drives a car with lithium batteries and you have to dispose of them, that's an environmental issue.
Yeah. Actually, here's something I did not know. Bonnie says we here in New Brunswick need it, but can't get through Quebec or the native population. That's why the guy from the block kept going on about we're not having a pipeline in Quebec and all that stuff. Didn't think of that. That makes so much more sense now. Well, Quebec has always been
It says look at what happened at like Magnetic or whatever. And nothing has changed, which is the train that blew up.
Oh,
with
yeah.
all of the oil in it.
Yeah. But how often does that happen? Well, again, it's a train. It had a pipeline. Maybe it wouldn't happen. There's always going to be disasters of some sort. You hope not, but yeah, there are. And why, like, try to, what do they call it? Borrow trouble before it happens? Kind of a thing. Yeah, one thing to be aware that there's possibilities and to put in safeguards as best you can, but, the naysayers will always have something to say about all that kind of stuff. But anyways, back to where, Bonnie, I noticed you said, I'm a liberal or green. Okay, here's another reason why not to vote for the Green Party. It's a wasted vote. The Greens have absolutely no possibility of getting enough seats that will have any kind of effect on whatever government is sitting. They just won't have the numbers. Okay? Simple as that. In fact, if anything, if the Green wanted to get more power, they should consider amalgamating with the NDP. But right now they don't. So, why waste your vote? I mean, you can go ahead and vote with your conscience and say, I believe in the Green Party and what they're doing. I'm going to vote for that. Well, good for you, and that'll make your conscience feel better. But it's not going to help the country, okay, at all. Because they have absolutely no influence on anything. In fact, I'm sure that Trudeau and Scheer get it together in a room and laugh about the Green Party.
The area that we live in tends to be conservative. So we'll be voting Liberal. It's kind of a wasted vote, but I can only hope that
we live in hope that it's a vote that doesn't get that at least reduces the power of the Conservative Party. So, who to vote for? The Liberals. Now let's look at Justin as a leader, okay? We just got off, before he became Prime Minister, 10 years of Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper was in the back pocket of the American presidents. He's Trump lover. He's a fundamentalist. He was against abortion. He was against LGBTQ community rights. He didn't favor anything that the indigenous people had to say. He favored all the big businesses, everything like that, tried to privatize many things, make a two-tiered healthcare system, or at least put in things in place that provinces could do that and whatnot. So Scheer is just another twig on that same tree. Okay? Justin was a refreshing breath, or a breath of fresh air when he came in after 10 years of conservative pounding. He came in, he supports women's right to choose. He has many women in his caucus and in his cabinet. He does what he can do with Indigenous affairs, okay? No politician will ever satisfy the Indigenous people. We can't. It's not going to happen. Maybe we should have the view that the Australians have. They go, Indigenous people, die. Okay, just saying. I don't
think
know.
that's what they're
Well, no, but they're not very supportive
No.
of it. We could see that when we were over there.
No sheer twig on the tree.
No to sheer twig on the tree.
Well, she says she's also voting in an area that's conservative.
Yeah. So Trudeau.
I mean, really, it's up to you what you want to do.
Yeah.
It's.
But let's think about the consequences this election is going to have on our country, and this is where the anxiety comes from, okay? Right now, they're predicting that there's more of a chance of a minority government than there is of a majority government, and that's a lot of it has to do with the undecided factor out there. It's going to depend on whether people are going to, who voted Conservative before, may go over to the Liberal side, or whatever. Okay, minority governments. Let's talk about those. Are minority governments good? Not really. Now, some people think they are because they keep the ruling party in check. Yeah, maybe. But there's so much fighting because if the Conservatives were, or the Liberals, it doesn't matter. Whether it's the Liberals or the Conservatives have a minority. The other party would make up the official opposition. They are going to question everything that goes through the legislation. They're going to block everything. Doesn't matter what it is, they're going to block it. All they need is some of the NDPers to be on their side with them. Then they can basically, we could have another election within a year's time. Because they could have a no confidence vote, and there we go through this whole hell again. In the meantime, nothing gets accomplished out of it all. Now, Singh is talking coalition. Only once in Canadian history have we ever had a coalition government, and I think it was during either the First World War or the Second World War. I'm not sure which it was. Only once. And that's when basically you don't have any party that is clearly has the mandate to rule the country. So two parties get together and sort of combine to rule together. It's not unconstitutional in our country to have a coalition government. It's just, it's very, well, as I said, it happened once in the history of Canada for it. Trudeau says, and Scheer both say, no, we're not going, we don't want a coalition government. Well, of course they're not going to say that, because if they turned around and said, yeah, well, that's an idea, then what they've done is they've said, well, we don't have a chance of really winning this on our own, kind of deal. So they're not going to admit, that's like admitting defeat before the fact. Singh has said he would consider approaching the topic of a coalition government if the Liberals had a minority, but not with the Conservatives. So that's an interesting development right there. So basically, I think that's a dangerous thing for him to say, because then there might be people out there who might want to vote NDP, but we're thinking, well, no, I don't want the, or I'm thinking of voting Liberal, but I'm afraid they'll have a minority government. So maybe I should switch my vote to the NDP, because the NDP would join up with the Liberals, and so we'd all be happy with it. Well, that's probably why the NDP are mentioning this. It's their way of getting their foot in the door to lead. So really, no. Now, the other things that have come out, only two things have come up negative about Trudeau. That's just something else. One of the things was, of course, the devastating whole, he did blackface. Let's get over that, shall we, people? He was young. He went to a costume party. He dressed up as Aladdin.
And he did a stupid thing.
And he did a stupid thing, and he has apologized profusely over it, very sincerely, didn't make excuses for it, said he made a mistake. Let's move on, okay? Because in the big scheme of things in ruling a country, dressing up when you were young in blackface really doesn't determine foreign policy or economic policy, does it? And the other thing they're laying on him, and this comes from the Conservatives, is that he propped up a big business in Quebec that did something. To this day, I'm still not really clear what it was that they got all upset about.
Something in Syria, I can't remember exactly.
Something in Syria or whatnot. He claimed he was protecting jobs in Quebec and whatnot. Okay, maybe he didn't handle it in the best of ways, but of course the opposition, the Conservatives...
However, if the Conservatives were in power, they would have done exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
They're making a big issue about a Liberal government doing it, but if the Conservative government was in power, they would have done exactly the same thing.
Is Trudeau, Obama, I like to think so, but no, he's not Obama. But what he is intelligent. He's a very good diplomat. And in this time right now for Canada, with our relations with China and other parts of the world, we need somebody in government who has a cool head, has intelligence, and knows how to speak the language of diplomacy. Unlike Trump, but he's not in our country. Scheer, on the other hand, does not have a clue how to be a diplomat at all. He lacks the education for that kind of thing. So what's being said here? And the other thing about Trudeau is he plays fair. Yes, he's a politician, okay? But like I said, it's the lesser of the a-holes. In my mind, he's the lesser of the a-holes. We have the best chance to have a prosperous country under the leadership of someone like Justin Trudeau, not the other ones. Now, Bonnie says, no. Bonnie says, of course it is a vote that I make, and I know that, but I love the conversation. I think it would be a minority government. I'm hoping it's not. In my heart of hearts, I'm really hoping it's a Liberal majority. And here's why. Not just from what I've said already about the Liberal Party and Trudeau, but because of Ontario. If the Conservatives get in power, whether they have a majority or a minority, Doug Ford is going to see that as propping up that he is the best choice for Ontario. That look at the federal level, they put in the Conservatives, so in Ontario,
And
they
I know
made
that
the wise
Doug
choice.
Ford wants to run federal at some point.
Yeah, it too. So basically, if Liberals get in, that is going to just knock the wind out of our provincial premier, Doug Ford, because that's going to make all the elements that have been fighting Doug Ford in the last year or so, it's going to give them a stronger mandate. They're going to say, see, it's not just Ontario, it's the Canadian people. We don't want you and your policies as Conservatives in here. So that's why, in my heart of hearts, I would hope for a Liberal majority. However, by looking at things right now...
Ford wants to run nationally.
Yeah.
I can tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
He's already said it.
And let's see, just backing up here. Bonnie said, tired of hearing of the blackface. We all have done things that are now considered not appropriate. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And now we know it isn't right. Let's take, for example, the word queer. Shall we? Okay. When I went to high school, that word was used all over the place as a derogatory term for people of my tribe. You're queer. Now, today, that word has been taken back by the gay community as something positive. It doesn't mean something positive to me because I'm too old school. To me, queer is queer and it's a bad word with it all. But it's the spin, okay? The spin on all these kinds of things. And that's what we have with this blackface business, all right? You know, I mean, yes, it's a bad thing, okay? The history of blackface, the whole bit, yes, bad. But why is it always taken out of the historical context? Because that's what it is. My grandmother, when we cleaned out her house after she and my grandfather had passed away, we found up in their attic these cut out things from plywood. And I'd never seen anything like this. And I said to my mother, what the heck are these? They were about 4 feet tall. They were cut out of plywood. And they were black-faced figures with a hand out holding an ashtray. And they were wearing like a little bellhop, you know, from the 1920s uniform. And I said to Mother, what are these? She says, they were ashtrays. And I said, who the hell would put these out? She says, I remember in your grandmother's house, she had 2 of them. They sat in the living room. Because she says those were in the days when everybody smoked. And that was very fashionable to have those. And they came from the 1920s, the 1930s, you know?
Lawn jockeys, yeah.
Yeah, you see? But you know, was my grandmother racist? No more racist than anybody else in the world, I don't think. I'm sure she didn't think, and nobody that came into her house went, oh my God, look what you've got up there, Daisy. That has got to be the worst thing. Are you burning crosses in your backyard? Where's your white hood? No. People went over, oh, ashtray. Okay. Today, no.
No, we look at it and go,
oh God, you can't do that. Can you? Because we're so politically correct about everything. Yeah, I get it. I'm sure Trudeau did not put on darker makeup. It wasn't blackface, first of all, okay? It was brownface. I don't know if that doesn't make it any better, I'm sure. But he put on some makeup because Aladdin isn't Caucasian. Okay, if you're doing it, even in Disney, he is not Caucasian. Okay, and they don't call that blackface, do they? They call him Aladdin. So he put that on. I'm sure he didn't think, this Halloween, I'm going in blackface. I'm going to show those. Yeah, no. So if those are the only two criticisms that the Conservative government, the opposition, can come up with, well, that's pretty mild. And I think most people, if they're intelligent, can see beyond those. Because those are really not the issues. It's not like Trudeau's going to go in, and if he takes over and go and legislate, blackface is legal. No, that's never going to happen. Okay. Yeah, Bonnie, that's right. And that's a discussion for another day anyways about the whole language in the LGBT community. Aladdin, yeah. Yeah, so anyways, bottom line is, for our election here, it's given us as Canadians a great deal of anxiety, possibly fear. At least I'm fearful that the Conservatives will get in.
And we all live through it.
And this is the thing about being Canadian. When it happens, we'll all go, oh crap, not the way I want to go out. Oh well, in 4 years' time we can have another election. Let's move on with life. We're not going to spend the next 4 years bitching about what our leader has been doing to us left and right, like's happening with the Americans, with Trump. Although, mind you, that is a little different situation. They do have, good grounds.
We do have
major
an
good ground
extreme
for that. Yeah,
politician.
for the orange turd, as I heard him called on a YouTube video. So anyways, okay, Catherine, we'll see you next week. So anyways, tomorrow will be the tale, and we'll talk about it maybe a little bit next week. But anyways, for those of you who are not Canadian, this was probably a little bit boring, but maybe you learned a few things about Canadian politics, because this is not something the world knows much about. How can we get it on the tube? There's too much about Trump on that. So anyways, I think it's time for us to go. It is. So I hope everybody has a good week. If you're Canadian, vote often. And we'll see what Monday brings, won't we? Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye for now. Say goodbye, Walter.
Bye.